Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, we have a little bit of a weasel fight, between and there is some leaders of some countries, and those leaders, some of them former leaders, they are, you know what I mean, right? Weasels, but I would start with a different word, with different letter, I'm sorry. So this article comes from Sputnik, and it's from today, the 24th of November 2022. German and Italian leaders deny Boris Johnson's claim they wanted Ukraine to fold. If you remember, Boris Johnson said in an interview that Germany and other countries would have been happy not to start the war in Ukraine, to be no war, which everybody would have been happy, I guess. And now that if it started, it had to, it had to be finished fast. That's what, according to Johnson, the Germans wanted, because that would hurt their economies, which it's a fact. So former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson conceded that the UK's NATO allies had sound economic reasons for opposing sanctions on their biggest energy supplier, Russia, over its response to Ukraine aggression in the Donbass. But then they soon followed Washington and London's lead. It was not hard to figure that out, but anyway, now it all come after 10 months and so many people dead and destruction. German and Italian leaders have denied former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's claim they wanted Ukraine to strike a quick peace deal with Russia. In a briefing to a conservative British broadsheet newspaper, a spokesperson for Olaf Scholz strongly implied that Johnson was lying. I think he never did that. I think no. And I'm quoting, "We know that the very entertaining former prime minister always has his own relationship to the truth. There's no different in this case," the spokesman said. That's very nice put, don't you think? Always has his own relationship to the truth. And I'm quoting, "A German view was at one stage that if it were going to happen, which would be a disaster, it would be better for the whole thing to be over quickly and for Ukraine to fold." Johnson told the US news channel on Tuesday night, admitting that Berlin had, and I'm quoting, "all sorts of sound economic reasons," end quote, for not wanting conflict with Russia. And I'm quoting again, "I remember the Italians, again, massively dependent on Russian hydrocarbons, at one stage simply saying that they would be unable to support the position we were taking," he added. A source close to former Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi said his comments in the interview in the Portuguese capital Lisbon were at odds with his previous stance. And I'm quoting, "Boris Johnson in the past has been very appreciative about Italy's role in supporting Ukraine against the Russian invasion," the source said, stressing that Johnson went on to, quote-unquote, "praise the EU nations, highlighting tough sanctions the bloc had imposed on Russia," end quote. In his interview, the former British leader said NATO eventually united around sanctions on Russia and arms supplies. Isn't NATO a defensive alliance? I don't remember any NATO member state being attacked by Russia. So yeah, on a visit to Kiev in late March, Johnson, the weasel, persuaded President Volodymyr Zelensky to end talks in Turkey, then on the verge of a peace agreement with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin's government. And I'm quoting, "What happened was everybody, Germans, French, Italians, everybody, Joe Biden, saw that there was simply no option because you couldn't negotiate with this guy," Johnson said on Tuesday. "The EU has done brilliantly. After all my anxieties, I pay tribute to the way the EU has acted. They have been united. The sanctions were tough. For your own people too, you idiot." European support for Kiev has been called into question in the past weeks after Zelensky falsely claimed Russia had attacked neighboring NATO member state Poland with 2 cruise missiles, urging the US-led bloc to retaliate militarily. Now we came back the story of two missiles. You find this one like, oh, sometimes it's one missile, sometimes it's two missiles, sometimes it's just debris, sometimes they blow it in the air, sometimes they land it. I saw the crater, so anyway, they said two. I will stick with whatever it was. There were missiles landing, or missile, I don't care. Projectiles. So Johnson doesn't seem to me, based on some statements that I read that he made, to be, I'm sure he's a politician, what do you expect? To be straightforward. Sometimes he is, when he knows that that's what he has to say, and he has the backing of his masters, the guys from across the Atlantic, and most of the time he's just thinking, and that's happening. The media will cover for his lies or whatever he says. I don't know. We all lie, more or less, right? But the thing is, you are in a position where your lies affect lives. My lie, will affect. Over there, it's just different. So those guys immediately came and said, no, that's not what we say. This guy is a weasel and so on. But not probably, I know, and I think you do the same, you do know that imposing sanctions, economic sanctions on Russia, hurt these countries, European countries. There's no country that was not hurt in Europe when they imposed sanctions. No country. I'm not talking about banking system, I'm not talking about private energy companies, and I'm not talking about the military-industrial complex. Those were riding high. All right, I'm talking about countries, about the standard of living, the inflation, the prices of groceries and so on. We were all hurt by that, so it was negative impact on all the countries that imposed these sanctions. This collective united West or European Union or NATO and all that, they shot themselves in the foot. But they were eager to do that to hurt the other one more. But it didn't seem that they hurt them more, because they found other markets. Russia found other markets and still sells its energy. So, and I think they start from a lower standard of living and they will drop a little bit. But you start from here, I think you're going to drop more. And it's always harder when you live in an abundance to be taken that little abundance, even if it's a small thing. For instance, let's say drinking, let's say Coca-Cola is not important. All right, that's a fluke, that's something that, but some people drink it every day, all day. Now for those people, and people drink it, that's why Coca-Cola has got so much money. So imagine that, let's say for tomorrow, it's not going to be Coca-Cola every other week. So for 1 week, no Coca-Cola, a week Coca-Cola. No? Yes. Who do you think is going to be hurt? Russia or these guys? These guys were going to cry like babies. They're going to be like, they have withdrawals from drugs. The same here. And that's just Coca-Cola, that you can live your life without Coca-Cola. And many others. Imagine, I didn't know about air conditioning. I didn't have air conditioning until I came to the United States. Let alone in a car. But right now, where's the air conditioning, honey? Click, 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 click. Everybody, air conditioning. Those guys don't give a fuck about air conditioning because they never had it. So these things that you are used to here and the rest of the world, those are just extraordinary achievements. So that's why these guys are going to start crying faster, because it's more things that they're going to lose. Just like this. Those guys, until you get them to lose what? They're going to lose food, basic stuff, electricity, and I don't even car, because you walk over there most of the time. So food and energy, that's all you lose over there. More or less. Here, on top of these two, you're going to lose Coca-Cola, cigarettes, ladies of the night, alcohol, and other. Alcohol is valid in Russia as well, but I think they are okay with that, with the vodka they have. I don't think that was on the contrary, since they don't sell it overseas, they're going to keep it for themselves, so they're going to have a continuous party. I wonder who's going to work. Anyway, just kidding. So yeah, as I said, these sanctions hurt these guys more than those guys that they were intended to hurt. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.